Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. Now let's take a quick survey. Raise your hand if you have ever said to yourself, I wish my life were like a musical. That's right. You can all put your hands down now. Don't ask how I know this. I just know. Today, we're going to be meeting one of the leading men, the creator and the director choreographer of the musical, I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical. Let's welcome Luc Bayer, Alexander Bermange, and Chris Whittaker to the show. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. Well, thank you for coming all the way over across the pond during the pandemic. I don't know how you snuck across the international virtual border, but thank you that you did. Fantastic. So I opened my show wanting to know who you my people are, the people I'm talking to. So Luke, I'm going to start with you on this one. I want to get a 30-second bio. So who is Luke in 30 seconds?
Oh my goodness me. Okay, I was not ready for this. Am I talking like just about myself in general, or do you want like what musically things I do? Or...
Whatever you want to talk about. We want to know who you are, Luke.
Okay, so my name's Luc Bayer. I am not going to say my age. I'm quite young. My playing age is younger than my actual age. So we'll go with that. I'm a performer. I work and live in London normally. I'm living in the north at the minute, and I've just been kind of having a bit of downtime because of coronavirus, and I'm kind of ready to get back to performing now. But I've had a nice year out. My sister had a baby, so I've been up north babysitting quite badly because I'm terrible with babies, and as soon as baby poos, baby is going back. But yeah, that's me, and I'm a performer in London, and I'm part of the most recent cast of I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical, which is the streamed one, which you can watch all over the world.
Fantastic. All right, Alexander. Do you like Alexander or Alex?
Either.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I'm just going to switch it up and every time. So, Alex, tell us who you are in 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, I'm a composer and lyricist. I've written numerous musicals that have been produced in the UK and internationally, and songs and music for plays in the West End and on tour. I've had the fortune to have tracks recorded by many of today's leading musical theatre artists, and I've written comic songs for BBC Radio, and a compilation of my work in that style has topped iTunes comedy album chart. Is that 30 seconds?
33, so maybe I'll edit out 4 seconds. So
okay,
we'll see. and Chris, yourself.
Hi, so I'm Chris. I'm a choreographer and director. I work mainly in London. I've spent the last year having a wonderful time looking after my son whilst we've been on the pandemic. So yeah, but now very happy to be back and leading the charge with I Wish My Life.
Fantastic. And Chris, just to let you know, if you need a babysitter, don't ask Luke, from what I hear. So
yeah, from experience, I can probably agree with that.
Okay. So before we get into the show, I like to get to know how people got to the show. So I'm going to ask all of you this. So were you always into musical theater, or was that something that you discovered a little bit later in life? Is that a family thing, or were you the black sheep of the family when it came to musical theater? Luke, let's start with you.
So I always did amateur shows when I was younger, and my first and foremost love was singing. I just love singing, and my sister always sung. She had singing lessons. I just kind of copied her. She was much better than I ever was. And I would sing around the house, and my parents would be like, oh, for God's sake, can he be quiet? And then Clara would sing, and they'd be like, oh my God, she's amazing. And I actually do still sing with my sister sometimes. We did a cover on my YouTube channel about a week ago. And she's amazing, but she doesn't perform anymore. So that was kind of my way in. I did a lot of amateur shows. I was on the X Factor here when I was 14, way back when, 14 years ago. Oh, it's told you my age. Yeah. 14 years ago, and and then from there, I always wanted to go to drama school. That was always my dream. So that kind of got me through school. And I feel like I say this quite a lot, but your kind of dreams change as you get older and you achieve different things, and you achieve one dream, and then you go, okay, what's my next dream going to be? And that's kind of how my life and my career has worked so far. So I'm on to the next dream now. So that's kind of what's got me through to this point so far.
Nice, very cool. Alex, yourself.
Well, my parents were always great theatre buffs. They weren't in the industry. They were, I suppose, what would term normal people. But they loved all kinds of theatre, and they would expose me to theatre from a fairly early age. They took me to see a few of the big shows that were running in the West End when I was quite young. And that really whetted my appetite for musical theatre. And so all through my teens, really, I was going to see shows, developed a particular passion for musicals, and kept saying that I would write one. I'd always been a little bit of a musician anyway, in that I'd started piano and viola, and I used to like creating my own songs, or should we say trying to create my songs, and I always kept saying that writing a musical was something that I would do, and I never got around to it. And then eventually it got to after I took the exams in the UK that we take at 16, and I had this long summer afterwards when I wouldn't have any schoolwork, had a longer than usual school vacation, and I thought, okay, that's when I'm going to write my musical. And that's what I did. And then I put it on at school, went off to university, was doing lots of theatrical antics there as well. And it kind of continued into adulthood, but it all stemmed from those early trips to the theatre that my parents took me on, and playing cast albums at home and on car journeys.
Nice. And Chris, yourself, are you the black sheep, or is your family into musical theater and the arts?
So my mum is the reason I started dancing. So I saw her in a local dance school show, and I went, I'd like to try that at the age of 4. So I went along to some dance lessons. My dad had no real kind of connections at all. He was a head teacher. And so then we did that, and then I just kind of carried on. I think they thought it would be a bit of a one-off, go for one lesson and then never do it again. And then turns out I actually carried on, and that's me. I never thought I'd be a choreographer. I never thought I'd go into direction, but here I am.
So as a quick thing, did any of you see yourself going into anything other than the arts? Did you ever have a passion, go, oh, I want to be a vet or a barrister or something? Luke, anything?
I sometimes think, oh, I should have, or I could have done something in either skin or dentistry. I love both of them.
Nice. Alex?
I think the closest I ever got to wanting to dabble in something else was radio, because, as I said, I've written a lot of funny songs for the radio. And that's always been a medium that interested me, but there's never been anything which had I had the same kind of passion for as what I'm doing.
Okay. And Chris?
So mine was always going to be either dance or a lawyer, and I realised that they're both lying, just in a different form. So I chose dance because it seems to be easier.
And that's where the money is, right?
Oh, obviously.
Obviously. We're all in this for the money. So that segues perfectly into the show, right? I wish my life was like a musical. So Alex, tell us, what was the impetus for creating this show in the first place?
Well, there were several, but something that really was a pivotal moment was when a few years ago, something I'd written was being done on a cruise. And I was on the ship for a couple of weeks, and every evening used to sit and have dinner with the cast and the other creatives. And something that would frequently happen is that the passengers on the ship would gravitate towards our table and ply the cast members at our table with all manner of questions about their day-to-day lives as performers. And it quickly became apparent that a lot of these people had many well-intentioned but completely erroneous preconceptions about the lives of artists in the theatre, and that contrary to their presumptions, these were not people who got chauffeured from their front doors to their stage doors every night. They're not people who, when going on a tour, would put up in 5-star hotels around the country. And I started thinking at that point that maybe if I were to create something that was about the lives of performers, it might be able to appeal to ordinary people who might be genuinely interested in it, and industry people and those who had an interest in theatre and performing arts anyway, because they might recognize a lot of the normally unspoken truths. And I'd also been wanting to do something which could combine my musical theatre writing with my comedic writing. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity.
Nice. And when did this first idea happen? How long ago was that?
Oh, well, the cruise was about 5 years ago,
Okay.
at a guess, 4 or 5 years ago. So it took a while to percolate within my mind, but gradually it took shape. And there were a few possible avenues that I wanted to try thinking about, see if I could do on the theme of performers, but doing it this way, that's kind of a hybrid between a musical and a musical revue, really, seemed like the way to go, and one that was the best fit for my skills.
Did you approach performers kind of like a chorus line?
Oh, yes.
When they took all the ideas from everybody and combined it? Was there any ideas? Tell us about
that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. I mean, I came up with a load of ideas, some of them sequentially rather than all at once, because I wanted to try and pinpoint the scenarios that typically happen within the course of a performer's career. And then I would go to performer friends of mine and say, okay, what's it really like to do an audition which doesn't go at all well? What's it like to do an absolutely exhausting dance routine? What's it like to be an understudy and spend your life backstage praying that the star will go off, and the star's someone who's only there because of their celebrity and can't really hold a note for toffee? What's it like to do an onstage kiss with someone you can't stand? What's it like to work with a diva? What kind of pre-performance rituals do you have? And so all of these songs are based on those answers, although a comedified version of those answers. So everything was slightly exaggerated, slightly intensified, slightly heightened to play for laughs. But all of them do have their basis in truth. And funnily enough, some of the most extreme elements of some of the lyrics are ones that are actually word for word what came from some of those performers' mouths.
Nice. You probably would have had like 6 hours worth of a show that you probably had to pare down because you'd have so many stories. And how was that, trying to choose which ones would stay and which ones would go?
Quite simply, it was normally the ones that made me laugh. I knew that I was aiming for something comedic. So it was, reading through all these messages that I got, because I did it actually mainly via Facebook. Invited Facebook messages from performer friends who are happy to answer a question in confidence. I didn't say anything about what the question was. I simply put on Facebook, if I've got a performer friend who's happy to answer a question in confidence, please like this post. And so really it was my reactions when reading through them. It wasn't exclusively about humor, because I knew there needed to be a bit of a balance between comedy and sincerity. But that was largely it, as well as real life experiences from, in the past, playing for auditions and past conversations with actor friends, and a lot of performers that I've worked with. There's a lot of those that have fed their way into some of these characters. So yeah, that's how it came about.
Perfect. So now you've got the show created. Chris, let's move on to you now. So how did you get involved? How did you first hear about the show?
So Alex and I met be 3 years ago now to discuss potentially working on another project that was in the works at the moment. And that never sort of came to fruition. But then about 2 or 3 months later, I got a message from Alex saying, well, actually, I wish my life is going to go up to the Edinburgh Fringe. How about we meet and have a discussion about you coming on board as director? And I had a listen to it. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was perfect. It would have been the first time it ever sort of went up to Edinburgh, and it would have been the first thing I've ever done in Edinburgh. And so, yeah, it kind of felt perfect timing, and everything kind of fell into place, and I was very lucky to go on board. And it was also the first time the show's ever been done more as a musical than as sort of a standalone cabaret or standalone sort of song cycle type of thing. So Alex and I, through lots of discussions and lots of catch-ups at Cafe Nero's over here, was we kind of came through and came up with an idea of how to make the show kind of work as a full piece rather than just people doing songs from it. And then we're very fortunate that it's been picked up and done by the King's Head now, and it's going into this streamed production as of this week.
Very cool. So you directed the Edinburgh and the streamed version?
Yeah, so I was on board as a director choreographer for Edinburgh, and then we've recreated that same production with half the cast that we had in Edinburgh, plus 2 very wonderful new faces that we've been fortunate to bring on board. So yeah, it's a remount with a couple of little changes. There's one song that's different in there, just because we wanted to mix it up a little bit and give something new for people who saw the Edinburgh production, so it's not just a direct copy. And so yeah, so I'm very honoured to have been brought along with it.
How was that experience for you, directing the same show on stage live and then having to do it a streamed version? What did you have to figure out differently for yourself?
So I mean, the first thing was the fact that it was done flat end on in Edinburgh, whereas we're doing it in the thrust at the King's Head, just because of the way the theatre's laid out. Also, the fact that it's a comedy and the show very much relies on audience laughs and applause, and the fact that in the streamed version we don't have that. So how do we overcome that? How do we work on that for a televised production? That was one of the biggest things. And also, you know, we worked on, bless Luke, who you'll chat to in a second, came on board doing an entire show with what is essentially 2 days rehearsal. And it's one of the wordiest shows I think I've ever worked on. So how we can still get the same feel of those who did an entire run for a month solid in Edinburgh, like honing it and perfecting it, how we can get that from 2 days and 1 day of cameras in a studio theatre.
Well, let's move on to Luke. Luke, how did you hear about the show in the first place?
So the show was actually on at the Fringe. I was up at the Fringe and I wanted to go see the show. I'd heard about the show. People in Edinburgh said, oh, you have to see this show. And I could get a ticket because it sold out. And it's really weird because actually thinking about that, I was thinking about this about a couple of minutes ago. And that's happened to me a couple of times with jobs that I have then done in the future, but that I couldn't see first time because I couldn't get a ticket because they were sold out. So I'd heard about the show and I know Charlotte O'Rourke. I'm friends with her brother, so I knew of Charlotte, and we'd met a couple of times in passing prior to doing the show, and I'd seen productions of the show that were on at the Zadells. I'd seen productions with different cast members, and it was something I'd always wanted to see, but I just hadn't had a chance to see the show, as I said, because it was sold out, which is amazing. But yeah, so I just missed the chance. And then I met Alex at the West End Wilmer Awards. I was singing for another show that I was part of, and I met Alex there, and he was performing.
And you were also winning an award. Can we just say, you're too modest to say that, but you were also winning an award for that show. You're too modest to say that, but yeah, he was winning an award for that show.
Oh, thanks, Alex. And I think you won an award for your show.
We won an award the previous year.
I thought so. So then you came back the following year to perform.
That's right. We were successive award winners.
Very this. So then we crossed paths at the West End Wilmer Awards and became Facebook friends, and then just stayed in touch. And that was my little journey into the show.
Perfect. So you were part of the online show, right? The
yes.
virtual show. How was that? Like Chris was saying, comedy relies on audience and feedback and the laughs. How was it for you? Just empty.
It was hard. I kind of had to rely on my gut, and I feel like even when it got to the filming, as Chris said, because we'd not had loads and loads of rehearsal, it was still very much like making choices. I was still trying to make choices, and I kind of just had to really throw myself in. And I mean, I haven't seen the stream yet, so who knows? Hopefully it comes across that it's funny. But yeah, it's a strange one, because you when you've not done a show before, you kind of have to trust. You're very trusting in like Alex and Chris and people that know how the show runs. When they say, "Oh, this is good and this is right," you go, I was like, "Are you sure?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, if you say so." So it's a kind of a very much a trust thing, but it was a very lovely team of people, and everyone was very supportive. Like, obviously when there isn't a lot of rehearsal, you just kind of have to chuck yourself in and kind of trust your instincts, trust your guts, and kind of try and retain as much as you can. And smile.
All you can do. It's all you can do anyways. Alex, you've seen it on stage, you've seen it virtual. Did you notice any difference the way the show comes across for yourself when you saw them performed live and virtual?
Well, the thing which was quite difficult to adjust to virtually was not having an audience there, because obviously being comedic in nature, when the show's been done in the past, there have normally been laughs aplenty and a reaction. So that was a little bit of a thing to get used to. But other than that, I think, there are obviously things that were tweaked production wise, and I always find that every new performer brings something new to it, so that was inevitably going to happen, because it's the kind of material which does lend itself to different interpretations. That these kind of songs, they're all very much about the overall performance rather than about having to sing every note exactly that length, for example. But the main thing was the lack of an audience reaction, although hopefully that will be compensated for by the reaction in people's living rooms.
If only you could be in their living rooms to watch them. So.
Yes, or maybe not, depending on how welcoming they would be to an uninvited guest. But that is funny enough. That's why it was useful doing something which was kind of tried and tested, because I think otherwise it would have been quite difficult, because obviously the show's been through a few iterations now, including that month-long run in Edinburgh. So we'd honed it, and we had a fairly good idea of what worked and what didn't. And in any case, every audience was always different. There was no audience that was ever exactly the same. But I think had it been something that was completely new, particularly something in this style, that would have been much more difficult to do without an audience.
Yeah, that's the crazy and most frustrating part. You do the show exactly the same every time, and different spots hit with different audiences, and you're like, that was funny yesterday, what happened? Right? So yeah, I totally understand. So what's happening with the show now? Chris, it's virtual now. Is it available for people to watch?
Yeah, as of the 22nd of April, we go live on the King's Head website, which is KHTV. And we're on there for 3.5 weeks, I believe. And it's sort of on demand, so people can watch it whenever they want. So you buy one ticket, and if you want, you can have it on continual repeat for 3.5 weeks, just get those songs right in your head. And then after that, who knows? I mean, we're very lucky in the UK that the theatre industry is making its way back. There's lots of new shows being announced and lots of returning shows being announced kind of every day, which is really exciting. So hopefully, the show will find a home again soon. Edinburgh Fringe is just been announced that it's happening again this year, but in a slightly different capacity. So whether the show makes its way back up there again, it's sort of yet to be seen. But yeah, we're very hopeful for the future of the show. This is just a way of bringing it to a slightly bigger audience and a slightly sort of further afield audience, hopefully.
Very cool. Very cool. So what is now that it's up online, it's finished, what are you guys working on right now? Anything particular? Luke, are you doing anything right now? Are you prepping, getting ready to go back into real life?
Yeah, I've got a few little work pieces lined up. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I'm doing a new musical called Millennials for a week in May. And I'm doing Hair at the Palladium in June.
Nice.
Yeah, so I need to get on with learning these things. And the song I'm singing in Millennials, I recorded as a single a couple of years ago. So I need to get practicing that as well, because I've not sung it in a while and it's quite hard. So I want to make sure it's as good as the recording. So yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Nice. Chris, what have you got going on?
So I'm very fortunate that I've got a couple of things coming in at the moment. So I'm working on Adam's Family for Trinity Laban, which is one of the degree courses over here. They're final year musical theatre students. And then I've got a couple of things bubbling away, hopefully coming to a theatre near you. Well, probably not near you, to be fair, sorry. But over here sometime soon. So yeah, it's one of those horribly cryptic things where you go, there's lots happening, but we're legally not allowed to say anything just yet.
I'm used to that.
The industry is finally coming back, and it's very exciting.
Very good. And Alex, what about yourself? You've been working on anything new? Should we be ready for the next show?
All being well, yes. Well, I mean, certainly the last year has given me plenty of time to write. Just before lockdown hit, I had one show which had just had an in-person reading when those kind of things were still allowed. And then during the last 12 months, I've had another show which has had an online reading and then workshopped at the Musical Theatre Academy, which is one of the big drama schools here in London. So I'm hoping that in the weeks and months to come, we'll be able to actually get those two pieces in a room and develop them further. And I wish my life is also having a little bit of an international life, which I've been a little bit preoccupied with recently. In that there's a Korean production which opened in Seoul a few weeks ago. Korean language, Korean creative team, and so on and so forth. So that's been quite nice to have some theatre going on. Obviously, as some people know, South Korea is a territory that's been championed by many of the industry as having been able to adapt to the pandemic in such a way that productions have managed to go on uninterrupted. So if any listeners are in or near South Korea, they'll be able to see this on a stage. And there were one or two other international productions that were lined up but have obviously had to be put on hold. So yes, hopefully things will start to pick up even more over the course of the next few months in all areas. Although I have to say it's been quite nice having that bit of extra time to write that's been freed up by not having to make so many train journeys as a result of everything going on Zoom, for example, now. So yeah, watch this space.
Well, congratulations to you all on the show. I've listened to the songs. They sound great. I look forward to seeing at some point on stage in real life. I don't know when, but hopefully at some point. But before we go, I always ask 3 questions of my guests. There's no right or wrong answers, but we're going to know a little bit more about you and who you are. So first question, what creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? Now, it could be a composer, lyricist, director, choreographer, stage manager, somebody famous, not famous, like a teacher. Is there anybody who's had a good influence on you? Luke, let's start with you.
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to come to me first. I'm going to go with a really someone that I absolutely admire and look up to, who I think is like an undoubtable like musical theatre legend and icon. Patti LuPone, who when I was doing Jamie, she was next door doing Company, and she came to see Jamie on a matinee, and I was on as Jamie, and she was sat in the audience in the stalls, and I genuinely was singing Don't Even Know It, and I was like, for the people that are listening and can't see me, I genuinely internally froze. And then I met her afterwards, and I don't particularly get starstruck, but I think she's amazing, because I just think she's so like, grr, and she's just great. And I love that kind of fiery energy, and she just owns it every single time. Like when I was watching her perform, I was like, wow, I'm actually watching like a true legend who's just so on it. I was like, that's really inspiring. So I would say she is someone that I look up to and idolize, and obviously having met her, I was completely starstruck.
Nice. Alex?
I'm going to say Tim Rice. Because one of the shows which really sparked my interest in musicals was chess. And when I was very young, I used to send him fan mail. And then when I started to write myself, I used to send him examples of what I was writing. And he would always respond and give me honest feedback, which I'm pleased to say that over the years steadily got more complimentary. And I suppose he's gone from being kind of my idol to my mentor, to someone who, bless him, has been a bit of a champion of my work. So I couldn't really mention anyone else in answer to that question.
Nice. And Chris, yourself?
So mine would probably be Susan Stroman. I think as far as sort of director choreographer roles go, she is the absolute epitome. And is one of the only people that can successfully make that combination of jobs work. So if I could in any way have a tiny amount of her success, I'd be a very happy man.
Nice. Perfect. Correct answers all around. Perfect.
Very good.
All right. Question number 2. An experience from your life that would fit perfectly into this show. Is there something that happened to you that would fit perfectly into the show? Luke?
Well, in I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical, I sing a song called Standing By, which I absolutely love. Like, I really, really love that song. I think it's so funny, but it's so honest, and it's just such a great song. And I particularly love performing that one because I feel like my kind of probably like biggest thing I've done and people know me for most is Jamie. And when I started in that show, I was the understudy. And John McCree, who originated the role of Jamie, was the only person that had ever played that role before me. So it was that feeling of being stood in the wings, waiting to go on and being like, oh my God. But like, he was unbelievable. And I used to literally sit and watch him and just idolize him and be like, oh my God, how am I going to go on and do what this boy is doing? Because he's an absolute star. And it is that feeling of being there and going to do the show, and it's not your face on the poster, but you're there and you're playing that role. And that for me, I would say, and the dance call as well, when you're literally in a dance call and your feet are literally moving and you're like, don't know if I'm doing it right. That feeling of panic is what I would say.
So Alex, I asked the same question of you. What experience from your life would fit perfectly into the show?
Well, there is one song in the show which was very much written more from my experience actually than performers. And that's a song called I Love to Sing. I started out as an accompanist, and I would accompany a lot of the West End musical theatre fraternity when they were doing their solo shows. And every so often, something would happen, like they'd switch the order of the verses of the song, or they'd come in a bit early, or they'd come in a bit late, or they were a bit nervous or unprepared and they did everything at double speed or at half speed, or occasionally they'd be slightly sharp or they'd be slightly flat. Now I should say that, if I was lucky, it was normally one of these things that would happen once in a blue moon. But that just gave me the idea of maybe creating a character that would do those things the whole time. And that's the celebrity, or the name I mentioned earlier that our standby is understudying. The one who really hasn't got the chops to deliver the goods, but is there because their name is box office. And so I really just made a list of all the things that I'd had done to me as an accompanist and just put them all together into one song. Because in fact that song, although it's very much about the singer, it's really the accompanist who has to cover and save their bacon.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And Chris, what about yourself?
So it doesn't feature in any of the songs from the show. Let's try that again. But yes, it's going well. But the first time I ever took an audition as a choreographer, it was for a production of Little Me in London, and I thought, I really want to make sure that I've got some girls that can do some lovely high kicks and stuff. So I did a little kick combination, and I went step, kick, and fell flat on my derriere. in the middle. And so I was like, okay, so all that kind of built up kind of thing of getting worried about, doing something wrong in the audition, and there I am leading the call and falling flat on my face in front of everyone. But I think that should feature in the next production, and I'll try and work that in somewhere.
Do we see a sequel, Alex, in the future?
Well, I think one of the nice things about the show is that because it is very much a musical review, there is the flexibility, and so I'm not sure that there's a sequel, but there's certainly the scope for adding in and taking out. In fact, there was a brand new song that I'd written originally for what was going to be last year's Edinburgh production, which for obvious reasons ended up not happening, but which has gone into the Korean version. And so, for example, that's one that's never been seen in this country before, never performed in English. And so I think, there's certainly no shortage of people who've said to me, oh, what about a song about this? What about a song about that? I think the thing is, it's a question of finding the moments which are kind of fairly universal to a performer's career. It's got to be fairly true to the general lived experience and trajectory that an artist would take who's working in this genre. But who knows? I shall make a note, and maybe that will feature in the next incarnation.
Because look at Forbidden Broadway and the 36 versions of that, and 18 nonsenses, and whatever it is. So I'm
not sure I want to spend the rest of my life writing this show, but yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Well, correct answers for everybody from question number 2. Question number 3, the most revealing question about who you are. Question is, food in the theater or cell phones in the theater? Which is worse? Luke?
Food, because it smells, and I don't really eat, so I'd rather just not people eat. No, I actually don't eat that much. But it's annoying, the noise of it for me, and people scoffing and people doing that. No, that's a no from me. I'd rather someone be on their phone, although being on your phone is annoying as well, and it's distracting as a performer. But I've also done shows before where people have worn like luminous clothing. Literally in the opening number, I've been like I thought, like, I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was like an alien landing in the theatre, but someone had like a luminous reflective jumper on. I was like, what? So I would say food, but it's a close call.
Patty Lapone would disagree with you, but
yeah, true.
Alex, yourself.
Okay, I'm going to have to cheat, and I'm going to have to say both, because those and far more besides are things that wind me up. And that will become apparent from anyone who listens to the lyric of the opening number in I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical, which is called The Opening Number, and is all about what it's like to do an opening number if you're a performer. And one of the things is all of these distractions that are going on in the audience. I don't understand why it's so hard for people to spend 1 hour, 2 hours max for something without an interval, without stuffing their faces, without being contactable, without contacting someone, without shuffling about, without talking to the person they're sitting next to. I mean, all these things, it does drive me insane. Theatre tickets ain't cheap. And I've got to be honest, one of the great pleasures of my most recent theatre visit, which was to see an open-air production of Jesus Christ Superstar last summer, was knowing that I would not be sitting next to, in front of, or behind anyone who would be guilty of any of these crimes, and I do call them crimes, because of social distancing. I'm going to have to say both. But if I had to choose one, I'd probably go for phones, purely because I guess it is possible to eat noiselessly. But then again, there's everything else. It's the rappers, and it's the crinkling and the licking of lips. And why can't people just be still and be quiet for an hour? Is that too much to ask?
But tell us what you really think, Alex.
Yeah. Imagine if you were passionate about that.
I am passionate. I'm really passionate about it because I know what it's like to have a theatrical experience ruined. And I know what it's like for people to come see things of mine to have a theatrical experience ruined. I think potentially, I think that the worst experiences I've had in terms of my shows have been in Germany, though. There was one time, okay, admittedly, it was an outdoor theatre, but then again, I'm not sure what difference that makes. When people pretty much got out, and this was, this was not on the lawn, this was like a proper outdoor auditorium. People virtually unpacked an entire picnic and were offering its contents to all those sitting around them. It really winds me up. It's amazing to me how unself-conscious theatres goers can be. Yeah, absolutely, have a good time, totally do that. I'm not a killjoy, but just be mindful of those sitting around you who maybe want to hear the cast singing and not you singing, or maybe don't want to run in commentary, or maybe don't want to feel as though you're practically being a voyeur in the intimate experiences that are going on between the couple next to you. That's all. Is that too much to ask? Does that answer your question?
I think so. Chris, can you top that?
I really enjoy eating food when sat next to Alex in a theatre. That's one of my favourite things to do in life. No, mine would be phones, purely because theatre's supposed to be escapism, and if you can't escape and sort of shut off for the time when you're in the theatre, like, I can forgive food, like, that's, eating is a urge that we all have, to eat and to be hungry, but phones, come on, like, turn them off for a little bit, please.
All correct answers. Alexander, you
Except
might
for
have the most correct answer. But
What's the prize? What's the prize for the correct answers?
I will come down to a theater and yank out anybody who's on their phone and eating it.
Oh, I wish you
Any
would.
of your
I'm going to
shows.
hold you to that.
You can hire me as the goon who goes in and pulls people out.
You're going to be my personal etiquette enforcer.
Exactly. I will stand at the front door.
Not my etiquette, but etiquette enforcer of others.
Exactly. That's what I will do. That will be your prize.
Thank you.
3 correct answers from all of you. Thank you very much. It gets to know a little bit more about you and who you are and what your beliefs are. I want to thank Chris, Luke, Alex, all of you for coming on today and introducing myself and the rest of the world to the show.
Thank you for having us.
On what
Thank you
you've
very
done.
much.
And yeah. So how long is it available? And where can we see it? It's
online until the 12th of May, and people can see it at kingsheadtheatre.com. That's kingsheadtheatre.com.
Perfect. So anyone who hears this before that date will enjoy it and love it, and the rest of you will just have to wait till it gets back on stage in real life.
Well, yeah, the rest of us can follow the rest of you, I should say, can follow the show on Twitter at Like a Musical, or on Instagram, assuming we're still in 2021, when this is being heard, at Like a Musical 2021. And with any luck, before too long, if you are hearing this after the 12th of May, with any luck, you'll be able to have another opportunity to see it, and all being well, to see the lovely Luke in it as well.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you all for coming on. Congratulations on the show. And
thank you.
Break a leg with everything you do in the future. And I look forward for the orders to come down and I can head over there and see you all live and what you do on stage.
That would be lovely.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. We were just speaking with Chris, Luke, and Alexander, one of the lead actors, the creator, and the director choreographer of the musical. I wish my life were like a musical. Tune in next week as we talk with a new guest or guests about their life, love, and passion. That is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.